Hello guys, welcome back to the channel for a new Databricks video. Today we are going to continue with DBT, data build tool, and incremental loading. And with this video we will have covered the most important components of DBT. We all know incremental loading is very important and frequently used, and that's why DBT provides built-in incremental strategies. But at the same time, it gives you the opportunity to create and customize your own incremental strategies. Essentially, behind the scenes, there is a macro being called whenever we apply incremental loading, and based on the configuration that we provide, we can make the incremental loading more efficient because we parameterize this macro function. In this video, we will go through the documentation very quickly, and then we are going to proceed with a live example. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. This is the documentation in DBT Labs about incremental strategy. Very quickly, you will see here that we have 5 incremental strategies: append, merge, delete, plus insert, insert override, and microbatch. And Databricks adapter only supports append, merge, insert override, and microbatch. It doesn't support delete plus insert. Now, we don't care that much. I think the merge strategy is the most important one. You can define it on the dbt_project level for all the models to be so we can apply incremental strategy for all the models, the new models, or we can specify for specific models in the config. Here it has some configuration things that you need to read. For example, here you have this option, merge update columns. You provide a list of columns that you want to update only these columns, or merge exclude columns, which excludes the columns to update. You can pass predicates here, filtering for incremental loading as well. And you can read here on this page, you can read more about the built-in incremental strategies, and you can also create custom strategies. Let's move to the most important documentation here. So here I found this page is the best one to understand how incremental loading works. So the first thing is you have to write the incremental logic, right? So you need a timestamp indicating when a record was last updated, and the most recent timestamp for this table in our warehouse. Pretty common scenario for incremental updates. So we select from orders where update greater than select max update add from this. Now here you get our cutoff selects max update timestamp, the most recent record. This refers to the model in our last run, right? The model as it exists in the warehouse. And max gets the most recent record processed in our last run. And this is as a cutoff, right? And then we filter based on that. It has to be greater than our cutoff, and this is it pretty much for incremental loading. Now, aside from incremental loading, you also want to merge, right? And you can do that by using this in the configs materialized equals incremental. You have to also provide a unique key, otherwise it will work as append and not as merge. And the materialized config here, we have we pass the value incremental. We add the unique key. So now we are adding records and updating existing records, right? And here we have to also pass the incremental conditions and using this is incremental function. So if you piece all the things together for a complete incremental strategy, here we provide the incremental strategy, the unique key. So we are going to create a merge statement based on the macro that we call, but we don't want to recreate the tables the table every time that we run the model, right? So we want to apply incremental strategy, add new rows, update existing ones. And this is where we use the isIncremental function, and we select the latest update add from the current run. Now, let's say, concern is when you have late arriving facts. That we will see in the live example in a little bit. And what you want to do to mitigate, you can subtract a few days from the max updated timestamp, so you can load more days than the max updated add, right? So if you want to backfill, because this does not have backfill capabilities, you have to use a full refresh here, so to recreate the whole table, the whole model. Anyway, so let's move to the live example. Okay, so here in VS Code we have already run DBT seed command in the previous video, and we create the model based on this CSV data. So now our incremental loading example will be based on this model here called data. Let's create a new file called incremental load.sql, right? And here what we want is double brackets, then config, open bracket, and we want materialized, right? Incremental. Then we can define the strategy, incremental strategy equals merge. We want to merge to add new records, also update existing ones, right? Then we want to define the unique key, otherwise it will only append, it's not going to update the existing records. And let's say the unique key is device ID. Let's also use this merge update columns to update specific columns, right? Angle, for example, that's a list, so let's create a list here. Angle, and then RPM. And here we want this, remove this one. And then you can also use, if you have a big table, of course, just to see the option, we can use cluster by, and then you pass a list with the columns that you want to cluster by the table. That it doesn't make any sense to use cluster by here because it's a very small table, but as an option you can use it to make your performance more efficient. And then after we have defined the config for incremental loading, for merge, actually for the merge statement, we need to only select the new records. So if we select from, as we checked from the documentation, we have to select from, we refer to the model, and then here ref in the data model, right? And then we have to use the incremental function. So here, curly brackets, percentages, if is incremental, it's this will call the macro is incremental, then curly brackets and if, right? And here in the where statement we have to use where updated up greater than select subquery, select the max updated timestamp from the existing model, right? From, and curly brackets this. So this refers to the existing model as is right now. So here is how you define an incremental model. So if you save that and then you run dbt run -l incremental load, and it will run this model here, this incremental model, and it will push it to Databricks. going back to Databricks, we select from this incremental model, and you see the data that we have in the CSV, right? In the data model. So if we select from the data model, you will see exactly the same data. Now, so what will happen now is we are going to insert a new record in the data model with ID 4, because now we don't have ID 4, which is a unique key, and then also provide a different date, so it will be the 10th of the month. So let's insert here, and now in the data model, let's say someone inserted the record, we have a new record. So far the incremental load model does not have this record. We have to, again, let me go back to VS Code and run the DBT run command for the incremental load, and let's wait. Once it's finished, we should see the new data. I run the DBT run command, so let's select again from the incremental load, and in theory we should see the new record here, as you can see. Perfect. Now, what happens for late arrivals or something similar, right? Let's say someone updates this record here, where device ID equals 3, and updates RPM. So what will happen if we run this, and then let's check the data model after the update? You will see that here we have updated RPM for this device. Now, if I run the select query that we have defined in our incremental load here, select from data the original table, where update greater than, select the max updated timestamp from the incremental load here model. And if we select, it's not going to return anything, because we don't have anything greater than the max updated timestamp. But let's say we want the incremental load to reflect, for late arrivals, we want to reflect the update. How can we achieve that? Based on the documentation, we subtract some days from here, right? So our query should be date, subtract, and here, let's say 2 days, because that was the max updated timestamp. Here is the 10th, and we updated the 9th, I think, with device ID 3. So if we subtract 2 days from the max update, you will see here that we got this record that changed. Now, if we go back to the model and add this date sub here condition, and run the model again, it will update the incremental load, and it will reflect what happened in the data model for late arrivals. Let's move to VS Code. So here let's use date sub, right? And then -2, as we said in the example here, come on, and 2 days, we subtract 2 days here, we save, we run again, DBT run as incremental load, and it will reflect the changes, and it will merge the previous records. Now, that's good if you want for late arrivals, but what happens if, let's say, someone updates an existing record that happened 6 months ago? Then it doesn't make any sense to subtract 6 months. You can do it, of course, if you have a very large table, but normally you would perform a full refresh to reflect all the changes. Let's move to Databricks. So here now, if we run the select from the incremental load model, you will see that the device with ID 3 now has been updated, right? So let's say here we update device, this device with ID 1 that was more than a couple of days ago. Then here we have to subtract or perform a full refresh. You will see that in a little bit. But for now, let's see another feature that we can use, which is actually very important because it's about schema evolution. Let's say that in the original model, in the data model, we add a column called status, for example. Let's add this column and then insert data in this column here. Just insert, update it with a string, and let's see the original model again with a new added column. Here we have it, right? Now if we run the incremental model as is, it's not going to reflect the changes. We need to change something. And if I remember correctly, here is when it comes to schema evolution, there is this option on schema change, and then you can define sync all columns or append new columns. So, or fail or ignore, which is the default behavior. For append new columns, it's only for adding new columns. For sync all columns also includes removing existing columns, right? So let's do that. Let's move to VS Code and add this configuration here. Here, comma, and then we have to add on schema change sync all columns, right? And this actually will update the incremental load will add the new column. So here also we have to add the status, right? Because it's not going to update the status. We don't only want to add it, we want to update it, right? So let's save that and rerun our model. DBT run -s for select incremental load, and let's move to Databricks to see the results. Let's query again the incremental load model, and we have to see the new added column plus the values for the last two records that we selected from this select statement, right? Which picks the latest two records because we subtracted 2 days. So, but as you can see, it doesn't have backfill capabilities, and now we have to run the model again to recreate the whole table, the whole model, using full refresh. So here, exactly the same command, but before we select the model, we have to pass the flag full refresh, and then it's going to recreate the whole model from the beginning, and this is how you can backfill old data. Now let's select from the incremental model again, and we should have exactly what we have in the data model. Yeah, as you can see, here we backfilled all the old data, we have added the new column, etc., etc. So this is how it works with incremental loading. You can define your own incremental strategy as well if the building strategies are not enough for you, but in most cases we have to use the merge strategy, right? And play around with the configuration to parameterize this macro function and make our code more efficient. This is it for today, guys. I think we covered pretty much everything, at least the most important components of DBT. I will provide the links below in the description to check your documentation yourself. If you like the video, please click the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.